Greetings and welcome to the test bench again. You're going to hear Turbo meowing in the background in a moment. The Philco Radio received its recapping today. I'll deal with that in just a second. I'll flip the chassis over and show you the end result. The electrolytic here, the reason it's sitting outside the chassis right now is I didn't fold it back in yet, so I could show you guys the recapping of the underside. You'll notice some tape and markings on the tubes because, as you saw at the very start of this video, I have myself a new toy. Courtesy of eBay. The American Accurate Instrument Company Model 157 Tube Tester. I got a screaming deal on this. The seller was selling it as is. He said it powered up, but he did no other testing to it to make sure that it works or not. And he said it did power up. I made him an offer of $55 plus shipping. The total cost was about 87 bucks. And I got myself a nice tube tester. So I've been using it to test the different tubes on these radios. And I did find that, unfortunately, on my Philco, the 7C6 tube right here, ta-da, I don't know if I can get the light to show that, 7C6, there we go. That tube is bad. It's got a short in one set of its plates. So therefore, that tube is probably why the audio was so weak and distorted. But, and again, since I mentioned this was a recapping video, I'm going to move the tube tester aside here. Let me unplug it and set it aside for the moment. Screaming deal there on eBay. I'm glad I got it. It was worth every penny. Here, amidst all the clutter of the bench, here are all the old capacitors that I pulled out of the radio. This 1.05 mic had been previously replaced. Let's turn on a little extra light here, see if that helps a little bit. This capacitor had already been replaced, the Aerobox cap, not too long ago. It was probably still good, but you know what? Screw it. I'm keep recapping the radio, so everything got recapped. All these wax capacitors are in various states of disrepair. You can see how the end cap is blown out there. This one doesn't look too bad. Most of the .01s didn't look too bad. I did cut some of the leads short. I know the purists say, you know, unwire wrap from the sockets and, you know, do it pretty. This one, as you can see, is also blown out. Let's see if I can get it to focus. There we go. This one was fine. This one was completely blown out. When I tried to unsolder it, the whole end cap came off, and as you look inside, you can see that the foil and the electrolyte is pretty much a mess. Dielectric, rather. These aren't electrolytic caps. Anyway, so yeah, all these old wax caps are now history. There's the end cap from that one that blew up right there. Nice little wax turd on my workbench here. Okay, let's see. I'm going to do this as carefully as I can. I'm going to work one-handed again. Let's flip this radio over. Oh, hey, look at that. There's a capacitor on the top of the chassis I missed right there. Let's put that right in there. We'll have to grab that bad boy next. That way we can make sure that everything is recapped in this thing. And here is the end result of my recapping job again. I really wish I'd designed this workbench differently to make this lighting work a lot better. You can see a mix of orange drop and regular capacitors. All the capacitors are now basically over voltage rated. You know, the 400 volt was the original rating on most of them. There were a couple that were 200, but all of these are 630 volt. I bought these in bulk. I'll give you a link to the supplier. Here was the fun part of the radio, this end, as you can see, and I wish I could get, let's see if I can get some, there we go, get a little bit, it's hard to get lighting on in this place. But this was a fun one right here, this section, because everything was buried. I had to take out this dual trimmer cap to be able to get underneath, and then my orange drop cap down there, boink, was too big to fit up against the front of the chassis like the original did, so I had to slide it backwards to make room. Actually, that's the second one, excuse me. There's the first one. You can just see it peeking out right there. And then, if you look down here, you'll see a group of 3 right down there below my finger. Let me move my finger out of the way so you can see it. So you can see that group of 3 capacitors there. There was a .03 microfarad cap in here, which I missed when I ordered, so I just put 3 .01s in parallel. And that should do the trick. If I did my calculations right, I'm hoping I did it right. If I remember correctly, capacitors add capacitance when they're in parallel and they subtract it when they're in series. If not, I'm going to have to tear that apart and redo that and get it down, because otherwise I just did something like 0.033 by doing it the way I did. But anyway, most of it got redone, most of it got recapped okay. This one wire right here, right, there we go, there we go. This wire right here, when I went to move it, the insulation completely flaked off of it. It does go up to this ballast resistor mounted to the front of the radio. So I just put standard heat shrink on it. I'm hoping it's not a nichrome wire that's supposed to get hot. It didn't appear to be. So we'll find out when I do power this radio up and do the official smoke test. As you can see, the working space in this chassis is extremely tight in some spots. So it was kind of difficult to get everything done as neat as I wanted to do it. But I did manage to get everything to go in. I'm going to fold the electrolytic back inside while I'm here right now thinking about it. And there's one lead on the end of this thing, the negative lead. I don't like the way they dressed it. Actually, it's... There we go. I'm going to have to solder that. Look at that. That's loose. It's like just a crimp connection on there, and it's not very tight. Anyway, there we go. Let's wiggle that again now that I'm in the frame again. I tend to do that. Background noise you hear, the speedway across the road is running, so that's that background noise you're hearing. No radio this time in the background. Anyway, so the recap is done. Unfortunately, due to the bad tubes, I won't be able to do the smoke test. I don't want to put that shorted audio output tube in, because basically it's not going to work anyway, so I figured I'll just wait until I can get a tube in and get it replaced. My oscillator detector tube, the XXD, which is a I think it was a 14AU7 was what I found its equivalent to be. That tube is going to need to be replaced as well. Like I say, I'm going to jump back here as soon as I'm done with the video and replace this last paper cap that I missed. But hopefully with the recap and then some cleaning on the contacts of the switches, on the switch here, I can get this radio to start working as well as it should, as well as I anticipate it will. The next project is of course going to be the bigger Philco down here. You'll notice the tube missing because I stole one of the 7B7s for this radio, because there was one 7B7 in this radio that I think this is it right here. I pulled a tube out and I didn't pay attention to what I was doing, and it has no markings on it, but I'm looking at the top cap of it. It really doesn't look that great. So it looks like it is already, if it's not at its end of life, it's very close to it. It looks like a newer tube though. I may for giggles slam it on the tube tester and see if it works better than the other 7B7 I got in here right now. It might be better, I don't know. Might be worth a shot to try it and see what it does. Anyway, so once this radio gets up and running again, oh, and here's the bad 7C6 laying on the bench. Once I get the radio up and going again, we'll do a full video on it. We'll do a nighttime band scan. We'll do a daytime band scan. I have a feeling this thing's going to be a powerhouse in both modes. These older radios are really pretty sensitive. There's my Bagzo caps that I got. Anyway, so that's it for this video. We're going to keep it kind of short and sweet. And once I get my replacement tubes, I'm going to replace all the weak tubes, and we'll get the marginal XXD tube here, and make sure that we give this thing a fresh lease at life. I will fire it up initially with these weaker tubes in it, just to make sure it's okay, that there's no shorts, I've done the capacitors correctly and so forth. Make sure there's nothing wrong that's going to kill a new tube if I put it in there. And then once I can verify that it's working, but it's just a little weak because of the tubes, then I'll go ahead and retube it and get it up to speed. Depending upon the price of the tubes, I may just buy all new tubes for this thing and just give it all a fresh lease on life as far as the tubes are concerned too. But I first want to make sure that my recap was successful and that there's no further issues with this radio. Anyway, that's it. I'm running long. I wanted to keep this under 10 minutes. So have a good one, and we'll give you another video as soon as I get this thing fixed.